Welcome back to another episode of the Thunderstock Show, collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. Today's guest is Justin Lund. Justin is the founder of Propel, so that business owners can do what they do best and they can handle the rest. Justin is out of Utah, so different time zone. And we're going to have a good conversation on entrepreneurial journey and what people can do to help grow their business, and more importantly, what they shouldn't do that might be harming their business. Justin, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me, Ross. Happy to be here.
So first question is, when you were growing up, if I was your school guidance counselor, would you have told me that I'm going to start a company called Propel? Or did you have something else in mind that you want to do with your career aspirations?
I did know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That seed was planted quite young. Definitely wouldn't have guessed this business for sure. I don't know that I would have known, actually. So yeah, maybe a little bit of what you would expect, and then a whole bunch of what you wouldn't expect as far as that origin story.
What was your first job or business? And what were some of the things you remember about it?
So the first job I had quite young, I worked at a catering company, and my buddy's dad, friend of mine that I grew up with, owned it, initially ran it. I worked with him a little bit, and I'm talking like 11, 12 years old. On the weekends, I would work a little. And then when I was 13, 14, I started working a little more regularly, and the business was sold and taken over by my buddy's brother-in-law. And I continued to work for him until I was 16 years old. So that was just the consistency, that he was a brother-in-law. He was an awesome guy, just a really good guy to work for, and taught me work ethic and how to, just work hard and get things done, and learned a lot of really good things. And I remember making a mistake once, and he was really cool about it. It's like we drove an hour and a half to cater this dinner, and I forgot to load the potatoes. It was like the main dish, these Dutch oven potatoes out of the big cast iron skillet. We had the whole truck full of everything, and I was supposed to just throw in it was a small dinner. There was just like 2 5-gallon buckets of potatoes already sliced in water, so we could get up to this place, dump out the water, cook the potatoes, and we didn't have the potatoes. So that was big mistake like that. And we're an hour and almost 2 hours away. So it's not like you can just run over and grab potatoes. We're up in the mountains, like in the middle of nowhere.
What did you guys do?
We went back, and there was no service. There was cell phones, not as, this is a while ago.
Nothing.
So we went back down about 45 minutes to where there was a phone, called Darren, the guy who owned it. And he probably said a word or two, and then jumped in the truck, and we met halfway between there, and it was late, but we got there, and he was cool about it. And then I never did that again.
That's too funny.
And sometimes that's how you learn, right? You learn through like the experience of others or your own kind of school of hard knocks experience.
I worked for a restaurant owner who was a family friend for a period of time. And he was a 80, 90, 100-hour a week, just the hardest working guy. Did catering, ran a restaurant that was open 7 days a week.
Yep.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, just always working, several restaurants, catering business, events, you name it. And it was a good friend of mine, his father. So the first day that I worked there, I spilled a drink on a regular customer as a server. And I was just like mortified. And he's like, well, bet you won't do that again. And 3 weeks in, I just was probably the worst server. Not that, not from lack of effort, just people couldn't read my handwriting when it was like the order. I would forget. I would like from taking it to going to the kitchen. I was like, oh yeah, I don't know. They give him a burger. It's like wrong meal. And I remember at the end, he said, so you went to school, right? I was like, yeah. He's like, what'd you go to school for? I was like, I told him. He's like, you should do something with that. And fast forward decade plus later, I had, been a small business owner myself, and kind of like him. He goes, isn't it crazy what you can do when you work really hard and you do something that you have an ownership mentality about, that's like your own. And he had a show on YouTube, and he interviewed me, and I was like, this was like really cool. Lesson learned was you can be the right person but be doing completely the wrong thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And makes all the difference.
No,
so then
look at how business owners applied that same concept in their business, right? They'll usually resist the things they don't want to do, and there's other people out there that make light work of the things that you struggle with. So in your case, you're struggling with this, writing the orders and knowing that just wasn't your lane. And same thing, like you don't find me jumping into spreadsheets to play and have a good time. Yet there's people that work for me that as soon as I start saying something, we need to solve X, Y, or Z, the first thing they do is open a spreadsheet. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why do why do you go to that? But that's just where they thrive and where they can grow. And I'm actually super grateful of that because we need spreadsheets. You just don't need them from me. That'd be a hot mess.
And we need people that love them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. So going into Propel, I mean, from what I know about the business, you really help small business people with filling in the work that needs to get done that maybe the owner shouldn't be the one doing it,
Yeah.
for lack
Yeah.
of a better phrase. How did you come up with that idea and what was the genesis? Like, how did Propel get started and why?
It actually was an absolute accident. I was about 2.5 years into a big lawsuit that I had initiated with an old partner that had taken millions, tens of millions actually, out of the business and just drained it over the course of 5 years, up to a couple of real big transactions the last day that just emptied everything. Those were like $1 million and $1.6 million were the last two transactions so 2.6 on the way out the door because I was that guy, Ross, that never, I'm like, I don't really like the numbers, I'll just stay over here. I'm not really good at that.
Mm.
And that was a major lesson that I had to learn. I'm kind of stubborn sometimes with those lessons. Like I could have, just like the potatoes, I probably could have had a different way to learn that lesson, but I kind of chose the most painful way to learn it, and then it seared into my memory forever. So I think God, the universe, is kind of knows that sometimes I need these real pointed and powerful lessons. So in this case, I was 2.5 years in, and a friend of mine. So it was all about embezzlement and taking money, and so the irony of that case is that the thing that I was not good at, I had to do every day for 4.5 years through litigation, through court. So I'm looking at financial reports and reading deposition transcripts, and that's all I did almost all day long for 4.5 years. So this thing I wasn't good at, like now I have a PhD in, because that's all I was doing for
I
so long.
bet.
And in the
Man.
middle of that process, about 2.5 years in, a friend of mine called and said, don't you have like all these professionals that work for you now with all the crap you're dealing with? Could you help me set up a company and just like do payroll for me every couple weeks? And
It's
it
like
was totally off the wall. I was like,
that's a piece of cake compared to the other stuff you're working on.
yeah. And it was kind of like, well, I mean, that's probably, so I called one of my guys. I'm like, we could do that, right? No problem. And they're like, yeah, we were all just kind of surprised. Like, what do you mean? We're all working on this and then you want to do that? I'm like, it's a friend. I want to help her out, right? No big deal. So she loved it. And she told 5 or 6 of her friends, they called, that was repeated. We had no website. We were just using an entity that was there that was like an old entity. We didn't do anything to set it up. But within a year, we had 50 clients. And so we're
Wow.
doing we're doing books, records. We had to hire more bookkeepers and accountants just because it was growing. I'm like, well, I guess it was clearly a need for it with the people in that
Mm.
circle. And then what I loved about it is, I still didn't have to do the books and records and payroll, but
Sure.
I was talking to the founders, like my friend and her friends, about how not to avoid this topic of numbers,
I love that story for one quote comes to mind. It's the rule number one in entrepreneurship, use what you got. And sometimes if you have painful lessons, you can use those painful lessons to help others avoid the same type of pain down the road, right? And I
Bingo.
think that's some of the best businesses out there, that the person who started the business was like, how can I make the world a better place? By reducing suffering of others. And what suffering do I know intimately well? The one that I suffered through.
Totally. Your message now, right? And that's what I really feel called for now. Like that's my purpose. Like I said, I did the kind of the coaching and consulting side of that because I'm still not like I don't jump into spreadsheets for fun. I don't, but I can talk to owners and founders about simple systems and processes that they can begin to get a little bit better this month than they were last month when it comes to finances, to get a little bit better tax strategy and deductions this year than they had last year, and just not be ignorant and have their head in the sand. And I'm a knucklehead, former drug addict that's just And if I can figure it out through that painful lesson, you could surely figure it out not having to suffer as much as I did for sure.
One, there's roughly 20 million businesses in the United States. It could be more, it could be less. The average
Mhm.
lifetime, if you make it past 5 years being in business, then you're in the top like 20, top 10% of
Yep.
businesses, right? When you offer a service that all 20 million of those businesses need, which is, everyone's got to pay taxes,
Uh-huh.
everyone's got to transact money in and out, everyone's got to get started and have formation, right?
Yep.
And you can reliably help people. It's crazy how easy it is. Easy, I would say simple. That like the referrals, like you experience like 50 in a
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
can really be when you just help people, and
Totally.
you help us a subset of of people that's big enough that there's enough
Mhm.
fish in the pond. Number
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Number two, I want to ask you. So thanks for sharing about the drug addiction thing. What was that like in your career? If you don't mind sharing,
Yeah,
about
for sure.
because I've met and I know several entrepreneurs that were in recovery and
Mhm.
also face addiction, and they're some of the most successful people that I've ever met.
Yeah, I'm happy to say again, anything that I can share from my painful experiences that could hopefully help prevent or lessen the pain and suffering of somebody else. That's what I think the point is for me now. So yeah, I got into sales to put myself through college, and in that sales environment, it was a good experience. I loved learning about sales because I like psychology. I was into Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and all the kind of
Yep.
self-development authors. I love that stuff. And the sales career was an opportunity for me to use that stuff practically a practical method and an application in my sales pitch. There's the downside of that was drugs because there was a prescription drug abuse culture there that almost everybody was participating in and just made it kind of like normal, acceptable, and language used. We got to get in the zone to pitch deals, and the zone is taking some pain pills. And that's yeah. So that was the zone that was being spoken of, and so it just seemed like that was the normal thing to do, and it was fun at first, but only for like a minute, and then you're addicted to this most insidious toxic substance that just wrecks your body and your brain chemistry and it just wreaks havoc on you. So again, a little stubborn, kind of, I don't learn lessons the easiest and most straightforward way sometimes. At least that was the old version of me.
Mhm.
I was trying to keep the charade going. I got married, then kind of got into had to accelerate some of the marriage plans because we had a little girl on the way. So
Mhm.
kind of fast track some of that. And that's when I got into drugs after that. And because now instead of just working part time to go through school, I decided to pause school. I need to work more. I got a family to
It's a lot of
support.
pressure,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
different outside stressors that are
for sure.
new.
And I'm 22,
Right.
I'm pretty young. And so with those pressures and stresses, then I thought maybe getting in the zone was going to be a good thing for me to help make more sales. I went right into that lane and, a couple years of trying to juggle that and maintain a secrecy, not, keeping it from my wife,
Mm.
all of those things. I ultimately ran into some problems with the law and I got arrested. And then the cat's out of the bag, right? My secret's now public. But that wasn't enough. I had to get arrested again, the second
Mm.
time, because it all came back to that belief like, now everybody knows I'm kind of a loser. I got to deal with this major felony charge. But the only way I knew how to make money was in sales. And so I'm trying to make sales. That wasn't working out for me. You're spiraling down. You're either spiraling up or down. The key is, can you pinpoint what day that change went, like when you went from up to down? Because a lot of people think they're
Right.
just kind of coasting or drifting. You're not. It's up or down. So as I was spiraling down, I decided it was a good idea for the benefit of my family that I go back and get some drugs again within about a month of the first arrest. Got arrested again, second time. So now I'm in jail again, felony charge again. And the attorney comes in and tells me, like, dude, what is wrong with you? Hopefully we can get you out of here within like 3 to 5 years. I'm like, whoa,
Whoa, whoa,
What?
whoa, whoa.
He's like, yeah, man. I mean, you've got two serious charges and two separate occasions within a month. Like, I'm not a miracle worker. And I'm like, dude, I got a baby. I have a 2-year-old. This isn't, I can just be gone for 5 years.
Right.
And so we just tried to figure out like what's the Hail Mary that may or just something. We got to come up with a plan. And it was go to rehab, stay as clean, like stay perfect, be perfect in your behavior. And we'll try to push the court date out as long as possible so that we can say, look, Your Honor, look how like it's been a year and he's been absolutely a great citizen. And so
Right.
that was the plan.
Reform. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. And so that was the plan. Did that
That was
worked?
the
And
plan.
then,
That did work. It ultimately there was about a year and a half before we got continuance after continuance. I went into rehab for 6 weeks and was there in an inpatient facility, which the scariest, most terrifying thing on the way in. But then the happiest and most clear I'd ever been on the way out. Like if I could somehow convince anybody struggling with those things that all the fears and everything, it's bullshit. It's so just based in trying to hold on to the old version of you. When I left that place, I now had 90%, Russ, of what I thought about on a daily basis really came back to just how to feed the addiction and keep it alive.
mm,
How am I going to get enough money to buy this? How am I going to keep her in the dark? How am I going to tell? There's so much going on that I want to bring it back to your point that a lot of these entrepreneurs that are very successful, wealthy, accomplished, and
yeah.
formerly addicted to something.
Addiction doesn't discriminate whether
Yeah,
you're wealthy or poor, whether you're
true.
short or tall, doesn't matter where you're born.
But
It doesn't
that
really
thread
discriminate.
there is and this is one of the paradigms that I learned in this facility, which I'm so thankful for. The whole, like everybody there and the whole experience was just phenomenal. Again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be hard headed enough to just get me up to that point. But that was one of the doctors mentioned the similar concept to me that addicts are some of the most capable, sharp, and smart in society. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? I'm
Mhm.
looking around the room. I'm like, we look like a bunch of losers in here, if I'm being honest. Myself not excluded from that list. And he went on to say, like, look at how much you put in you got to stay out of jail. And for years, you skirted the law. You're doing all
Right.
these things illegally and you never got caught. Think of all the alcoholics that drive drunk, that get away with it, that do. Like, there's so many things that you're putting your energy into. Just get your shit together and actually channel it into something that's positive for once. And that really stuck with me. So when I left rehab is when I started building my first business. And within about 15 months, it was doing mid 7-figure numbers.
What
And
business? What was the industry? Don't need to know specifics about what industry did you get
yeah,
into.
I was in marketing. It was a
Okay.
marketing agency. And so
Wow.
I
For
grew
marketing
within,
agencies, for those of you that are listening, that industry to get above 7 figures as a marketing agency is no simple feat. There's tons of boutique marketing agencies that are, either solo shop or a couple
yep.
employees that stay at 400, 600, 800K
Yeah.
forever. They never get over the 7 figure. So for you
Yeah.
to do uh, you know, mid seven, that's pretty crazy. That's good.
Within about 4 years, let me think, between 4 and 5 years after coming out of rehab, we were just shy of $100 million.
Whoa.
Yeah, we had huge accounts. We were managing tons of ad spend. We grew from one entity into probably 7 or 8 that supported. There was a lack in, once we got one entity up and cranking and we're doing about 20, 30 million, then we realized there's really a lot of holes here. We started a design company and a branding agency on the side. And
Sheesh.
that had a couple $100,000 within its first year, and then we had a hosting company. This is before AWS and Google Cloud and all these things that made
Yep.
hosting really easy. So we built a server infrastructure company where we have hardware, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of hardware littered throughout the country in different data centers. And then the team to manage that kind of stuff with redundancies and backup and load bearing management for campaigns that are getting 4, 5, 600,000 visits a day, that we're routing traffic so servers don't crash and page times load fast. So a lot of things that kind of spun off of that in the subsequent years that was fun. It was exhilarating.
So I'm going to make an observation both about what it takes, what I'm hearing from your story, to grow that quickly, that fast, and then also what it takes to recover. So I had clients before that worked in the mental health space. So whether it was intervention clients or whether it was, people I know that worked in rehab facilities or network with people that did even post because of recidivism rate. Like once
Yeah.
you like for you to do one stint in a rehab facility and then you're good. That's not the norm, which is
True.
unfortunate.
That's true. Yeah.
Most people takes quite a few, like,
Hmm.
learning that lesson and coming back. So some of the things that I can pinpoint are it's just energy, and where you focus it is where you'll improve, like you can improve. And if your
Yeah.
energy is focused on, how do I sustain a lifestyle of addiction, you can get pretty good at for a while, but then a long enough timeline, something will happen, right?
It's like a cancer, right? You're killing the host essentially. So
Mhm.
you can keep the addiction going for a long time, but the better you get at it, the shorter your life, whether that's the life of the addiction or the life of the host itself, just in death. Your time frame is shrinking as you progress. So it's a pretty shitty thing to try to put your energy into. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
But when you put your energy into whether that's higher power, whether that's into, if you're spiritual or religious into
Yep.
God, whether that's, you could put the same amount of energy with that same intensity, right? And that same focus and fervor into
Yeah.
good things. And the
Yeah.
reverse is true, right? You can
Absolutely.
compound, grow great businesses, like really change not just, the economy, but your family and your circle around
Oh,
you and be a
for
positive
sure.
influence. And I think one of the things you said about self-esteem is like really, really important. Is forgiving yourself, right? Accepting grace. Like you're saying, okay,
Yeah.
I own it. Like it's all on the table. We can talk about it soberly, rationally. That's the old me. That's done.
Hmm.
This is what I've been doing, and then one day at a time, right?
Yeah.
Stacking evidence one day at a time that
Yep.
you can be who you want to be. I think a lot of business owners would really benefit from that frame that it takes to recover from addiction and say, okay, how can I recover from, because addiction doesn't have to be drugs. It could
No.
be gambling. It could be whatever, right?
Ross, it could be your freaking email, right?
It could be
Like,
anything.
yeah.
So I find that, and not saying any addictions are better or worse than others, but I find that some founders and business owners are so addicted to the identity of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, that all they have is work. All
Hmm.
they do is work.
Yeah.
And I've worked with people that, whether they admit it or not, I've seen a lot of similarities, that probably addicted to work, that would spend 3 or 4 hours every day tinkering with SEO, like doing like keyword optimizations in their mind or trying to edit HTML. Person in my, definitely not going to say any names, had a at one point an 8-figure business and had 40 employees, was the president and the CEO, and like everything had to go through this person. You'd have their hands and everything.
Yep.
And it's like the constraint is your inability to let others do the work, right?
Right.
So how do you, well, okay, next line of thinking, questioning is, you have the marketing agency, we know about the lawsuit instances, and now you're on to Propel. How long have you been doing Propel, and what are some of the key lessons you have from your first business success in growing Propel? Like what will you be doing differently? What have you been doing differently?
Yeah. Good question. I've been Propel unofficially has been around. Like I said, we didn't even have an entity when we started. There was no website for the first 2 years. We didn't have any name or website. So that started 10 years ago. Yeah, it was a little more than 10 years, like 11, I think it's 2014, maybe. So it's 11, 12 years or so that we've been doing this side of things. And the lessons that I've learned is there's a lot. There's definitely a lot.
Yeah, where do we start?
One of them, just yesterday, this comes to mind because yesterday I was looking at a tax return. Monday is the deadline for if you filed an extension for entities, Monday you got to get the tax returns in. And so I'm looking at a tax return, and I went through two that were really easy, just pretty straightforward. They're only 4 or 5 pages. And then I get to one of the others and it's like 47 or 52 pages. It's a big thing. And I open it and I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's look at this. And I sat down with my bookkeeper. And so this is one of the lessons I'm getting at here because, again, I'm still not, it's ironic that I run a business that's really based around bookkeeping and records and administrative and tax stuff because I still hate it. I mean, I don't love it. I don't think I ever will, but I know now how to help other people see things and put themselves into a system where they can grow their proficiency and their understanding of it, so that it actually helps them grow their business as a whole. So that's the big kind of takeaway that I got from that, all those years in litigation. But it came up yesterday as I was looking at this tax return, and I was just reminding myself, I could see after asking a few questions and opening up a few sets of books with my bookkeeper and just saying, like, what was the gross revenue last year? What was the gross expenses? I'm like, okay, that's pretty close. That one's pretty close. Whoa, that's off like by 85 grand. Why are the expenses so different? Our books expenses showed, whatever, maybe 585, and the tax return expenses showed 500,000 of expenses. I'm like, what's the deal? I don't understand that. So we looked into the expenses. And again, I don't understand how to read the tax return. I understand like the first page, it's like just the big numbers. But then there's 47 other pages. I'm like, what do they even mean? What is all this stuff? I don't really get it. But it was given to me. I'm leaving town this evening, so I knew that I had yesterday and today to finish it, because Monday is the deadline. And I'm kind of pissed that I got it that late anyway, because it's like, you're giving me no time to call and ask. And if I call their office, they're swamped because they got 400 other returns to get done in this same deadline. And I could just feel the internal pressure, like not having the answers, knowing why the discrepancy was there. And I was just like, there's the voice that's like, well, it must be something. It must be valid. It must be this. It must be that. Just sign it. Just move on. Is this really worth your time? Just get out of there. And I'm like, stop it. That's me fighting against me. That is a weak link of my view on numbers coming back yet again to try to haunt me. And I've learned this lesson, and I'm not going to do it. So we pushed through and looked at some of the expenses, and we found out that 30 or 40,000 of them, so a good chunk of the expenses, were just things that had been paid that were really personal expenses that we knew were personal. It's like that just happened to be on the business books. That credit card was paid by a business account, so we can't deduct them. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So there's 30 grand or 40 grand. That is normal. That checks out. But we're still dealing with 40 grand. And one of them was a business trip that had been booked incorrectly. And all in all, with airfare, the lodging, everything, we're talking like about $10,000. And it was booked and disallowed by the CPA. And so by pushing, I had to push 3 times. We called and asked. I said, no, you can't do that. And I said, wait a minute. I don't think you understand. Called again. And then I called the woman who was working on its boss and said, I don't understand why I'm getting pushback on this. It's you working up against your deadline. You're not hearing what I'm saying. That was a business trip, and here was the purpose of the business. And my old bookkeeper put it in the wrong entity. And he went, oh, let's fix that. So a $10,000 mistake and again, I didn't know any of it other than so that was a big lesson, Ross, is I knew I could feel myself, and I had awareness now, whereas before I would have been like, well, I don't really know. I mean, I'm sure there's a good reason for it. And I would have signed the freaking tax return, and $10,000 of income would have been taxed when it didn't need to be. And now they're doing the new return, and I'm going to have it by the time we're done. And now I can hopefully match the numbers and sign it, right? So things like that make that's real money, and if a business owner and that's why I love the coaching that I do with the entrepreneurs and founders now, because they see those shifts and it translates into real dollars on their bottom line. So that feeling of uncertainty, or this isn't my lane, or I don't know how to deal with those, turn into actual tens of thousands of dollars of difference in their bank.
It comes back to the psychology you used to read, right? There was a quote, whether it was Brian Tracy or Zig Ziglar, one of them. It's like, hey, the way to get what you want out of life is to help enough people to get what they want out of life. And your stubborn persistence, and you're picking up the phone 3 times with urgency. Like, you can't learn that in a book. You can't learn that in school. Yeah, I think that's something that people talk about impulse control. It's like, there's a time where you should have no impulse control, and it's when there's a fire. And it's like, I'm trying to save you from this fire. And like, oh, it's okay, I'll be fine. No, there's smoke. I'm going to carry you out of this room. Like, let me carry you out of this room to not get burned, like as an analogy. And I think that's really important of a lesson, is to identify when to push to help people help themselves, right? Because you said it. It's like you've identified instances where you're fighting yourself. It's like, don't fight myself.
Yep. Here's a good way to maybe frame that. I think you'll like this metaphor from my coach. And he says to recognize the difference between a dumpster fire and a kitchen fire.
Hmm.
With a dumpster fire, you let that shit burn out. It's not a big deal. It's no harm, no foul. A kitchen fire, you need to rush in and take care of things now before it compromises the entire building and people get hurt, right? So that's a good one to kind of put through that lens and help see, like, wait, is this a kitchen fire or dumpster? Because you don't have to jump into every freaking dumpster fire and treat it like people are going to get hurt. Just leave it alone. They'll die.
No. And identifying the difference.
Key. Yeah.
That is a learned skill. That is a learned skill. I remember when I was just starting as an entrepreneur, I mistaken so many dumpster fires for kitchen fires where I was like, I got to
Yep.
jump in and fix this right now. And I look back, I'm like, didn't like 4 out of 5 of those things that I thought were the end of the world were definitely fine. And like, I could have ignored. Now, the 1 out of 5 that was a kitchen fire, I'm glad I did. So what are some of the strategies that you have in business that help you identify the difference between those two?
You kind of touched on this a minute ago when you were getting into, we were talking about like how they're doing too much, they're the bottleneck, everything runs through them. There's similar concepts, right? If you can identify that you're doing too much, or if you feel like maybe you can't identify that yet, and all you feel is trapped and stuck, and like, why does everybody need me for everything? That's a common thing that I hear from our
Mm-hmm.
clients a lot. And that is similar. And you probably are misidentifying the fires. Okay. So you need to take a step back. And one way that I do this, I was just doing this with one of my clients the other day. She has a team of 7 plus herself. So there's 8 people on the team. And she's always complaining about similar things. Like, I'm always doing all of this for them. And if you ask her to, why don't you just let a few of them go? She's really, I would say she's got a bleeding heart for, I can't, their family relies on me. And
Ruinous
so,
empathy. That's what I
yeah,
call it.
so she's totally trapped in this situation that she feels there's no escaping from. This is how I helped her get a different paradigm and really start moving the needle fast. And that was taking her gross revenue and, gross profit, and then calculating that to the amount of time that she spent at working.
Mm.
And we came up with a figure representing her rate of income, what her time was worth, in other words.
Affected
And it was
hourly rate.
yeah. And it was right around $400. She's like, whoa, that's more than I thought. And I said, okay, now let's look at what you did last weekend. So where were you on Saturday morning? So, well, I was in the office. What were you doing? I was cleaning it, because that's where I go and I take all the garbages out and I vacuum everybody's stuff and I clean up the kitchen. I'm like, okay, how long did you spend? She's about 4 hours. Okay. Now let's go back.
$1,600.
Let's go back to that rate. And I didn't know if she was going to throw up or just get angry, but it washed over her. The realization that she effectively spent $1,600 to clean up the office. I said, okay, now do you think you could find somebody in your area that would do that job just as good, if not better, for $20 to $25 an hour? And she's like, I know 5 people I could call right now. I'm like, exactly. And they'd probably be grateful for the work, wouldn't they? So now, and that began like, whoa, her wheels started turning. She's like, wait, what about this person? What about this? And what about this task? I'm like, okay, hang on. We don't want to start confusing kitchen for dumpsters and vice versa, right? Let's begin to understand the concept. And within weeks, like, she starts implementing SOPs. She starts putting repeatable processes in place, where it became very clear that a couple of the people on her team just absolutely weren't contributing in any fashion, and they were easy to transition off the team and put them in a better situation. But more importantly, revenue started going up quick because she stopped doing things. It was angering her to realize how she was spending so much time on low value tasks. So we started working on the admin stuff and the accounting and the books and the invoicing and things that were critical, but not $400 an hour, right? You can do that stuff for quite a bit cheaper. So we started identifying those, and those were our first SOPs, our first playbooks, our first repeatable processes. We focused on that, which gave her 5, 6, 7 hours a week. And that 5, 6, 7 hours a week, guess what she started doing?
Making money.
More sales, man. Exactly. She started creating more. She was doing business development. She got some relationships established, made a few more sales. Her income went up fast. So not only is she worked, and she's happier because she's not cleaning the office on Saturday.
Well,
She comes in on Monday to a clean office.
if you increase your time commitment by 50%, so now you're working 100 hours a week or whatever, right? But you increase your top line by 50%.
Oh.
Are you happier? I don't know. I don't know if someone wants to work 100 hours a week, like the entrepreneur I mentioned earlier, Doug,
Yeah,
like maybe he's happier.
true.
But not everyone wants to work 100 hours a week.
Wow.
If you can increase your top line and decrease your hours worked, I think the majority of people out there would prefer that.
Totally.
You know,
And what's
it's
bananas is reaching those numbers where your time goes up, but what you're doing, what you're contributing to at that time, like email is a big one. A lot of people just get addicted to that, and that's why I
I
mentioned that when
know.
we're talking about addiction. They don't recognize it, but it's like a to-do list that's public. You know, it's like putting your to-do list out on a busy corner street and saying like, "Yeah, just here's a pen, just write down whatever you want on there, and I'll just go ahead and do it, and I'll respond to it." I'm like, who does that? Nobody would do that. But that's what you're doing with your email inbox. So that's a big place that I can usually unlock some quick wins with people because they'll jump in their email in the morning. They'll do it again before lunch. They'll maybe do it while they're eating lunch. They'll do it in the afternoon, and then they'll do it at home in the evening when they're trying to connect with their kids or maybe
Right.
sit in the hot tub. All in, it might be 2, 3 hours in a day. And they're shocked by that because it seems so critical. For us, there's a feedback loop of dopamine that isn't unlike other addictions. Because when you open those emails and you get to see the number, that's the little red circle number on your phone screen, goes down to 0, and then the red thing goes away. You're like, okay, I got some shit done. You know, I did good today. You're paying, you're getting a payoff. Not only there, you're getting a payoff potentially as the person who has all the answers. So I hate that everybody has to come to me, but man, it feels pretty good when I answer all their questions. Yep. Only I knew how to solve that problem.
I laughed earlier because I had a conversation with my wife. There was a time where I had to travel for business. I don't normally do that now. I did much more before. You know, lawn needed to get cut. So she hired a neighbor kid and that kid did it and great job for like 30 minutes for like, I don't know, I think she gave him like 30 bucks, 40 bucks, something like that.
Huh?
And I was pretty defensive at first. I was like, "Well, honey, that's my thing. I love doing that. It's like where it's my
Mm-hmm.
meditative, like it's the
All
one
right.
chore that I can put in my AirPods, listen to a
I can relate.
podcast.
Yep.
I get in my zone." She said, "Yeah, but you weren't there." And like, what's the big deal? She's like, "We should do it. You should never mow the lawn again." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? I like it." She goes, "It takes you 2 hours to do the whole yard between mowing and all the other stuff." She's like, what's your hourly rate if you had to say what your hourly rate for your
Mhm.
business?" And I told her, "Well, it's this." She goes, "All right, well, if you can save like 90%
Yeah.
by paying somebody,
Mhm.
right? Why wouldn't you do that?" And so what I try to do as a fractional CMO, because like you, I've hired and fired in the brand side as a business owner, marketing agencies or employees or, people that do marketing things.
Mhm.
And I have seen business owners, and I'm not kidding you, within like a year or two, just spend $1 million that if they would have done nothing, they would have been better off and still have the $1 million.
Totally.
So I want to
Yeah.
solve that problem for other people, but it's so hard. Sometimes you need that extra voice to say, "Yeah, but you're not solving that problem for yourself." Right?
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
repeating the error with the
Mhm.
lawn thing for me. So, man, that is such a crazy story and I'm glad you shared that. What I would say, if I had to guess, one of your passions or your purposes is to help business owners to get more freedom. But that could be freedom of time, that could be freedom from stress, how to do things, helping them grow their business. But how did you arrive at that mission statement? Like, I love the
Mhm.
word freedom. It's in my tagline for my show. Like, how do you define when a business owner, obtains more freedom or gets their freedom back?
Okay. Stop me if I go on here because you're pushing my buttons here and what I love to get into. So I could kind of go off. First of all, I'll start at the end and maybe work back on a couple of thoughts because I have some. Freedom is important to me because I almost lost it once and like literally and came really close. And keep in mind, Ross, there was a year and a half that I had court dates looming and out. We didn't know if that strategy was going to work. So I literally, it hung in the balance while my baby became 2 year olds. And,
Right.
my 2 year old was now a 4 year old. I'm like, wow. Okay. And during that time, I had a business that was now doing over $1 million a year. And so we had more resources, started getting out of debt, things like that, paying off some of the mistakes I'd made during the addiction phase.
Yep.
And things were going well. So freedom was an important concept for me then. And having my own financially was important to build on. Then the partner that I brought in after the first couple years of building a level of success, I was scared about the success, to be honest. And that's why I
Sure.
opened the door to him, because I didn't know how to handle all the taxes and all the, it was growing so fast. I was kind of like, the first year or two, I was like, look how much ass I can kick when I don't have an addiction to feed. And I was
Right.
proud of it. And in the third year, I was like, okay, I gotta get some help here because this is freaking me out. I'm looking at 10 million bucks
You're getting
potentially.
vertigo looking down from how far you've come.
Yeah. So that he recognized my fear and he's like, don't you worry. You stay doing what you do and I'll help you with the rest. I thought that was awesome. And I thought, great, match made in heaven till it wasn't, you know. But for a few years, it felt even like it was great. I mean, he'd come to my house multiple times a week. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, everything was taken from me. And now I'm back with nothing. And I moved my family across the country to a small town and a humble house. You know, I'm just, it's a totally different lifestyle where nobody knew me, nobody knew my story, nobody knew that I was a millionaire and now it's all gone.
Right.
Nothing that. I was just a guy that moved into the new neighborhood from across the country. I I had to learn a different kind of freedom. First, it was in my mind. I learned how to meditate, how to forgive, because it was toxic. I mean, all
It's
the
right. You're forgiving for your own benefit. You're
yeah,
the one who
yeah.
benefits when you can forgive others.
Yeah. And I knew that if I didn't, it was killing me. And so I needed to figure out a way to let that go. And I literally started studying meditation and I went through some transcendental meditation and different other ideologies and schools of just how
Yeah.
to deal with my thoughts. There was times that I used to drop matches into a box and just count 100 matches. There's a match. Just to figure out how to control weird shit like that I would do because I needed to get a hold of my mind because I had all this money and all this success, and then it was all gone. And I found a different sense of freedom. Mowing the lawn was actually one of the things I did there because we had 2.5 acres in this little town, and I mowed it all the time. It took me forever to do that,
Right.
so I can relate. But I had a different kind of freedom then. I took my kids to school every single day for 12 years. Every day, I brought them home from school every day for 12 years.
That's awesome.
And in the middle, I worked on that case for many of those years, for 4.5 of those years. But I was able to do that. And I started to recognize like, that's the kind of freedom that really matters. Right. So back now, another step, you mentioned the lawn mowing and I mentioned lawn mowing. I think there's an element that I might bring up to your wife that if I were having the conversation that you two are having, I'd say, well, hang on, because there's another ingredient. Yes, there's the time value of your time equation that you definitely need to keep in mind. But there are things like I just mentioned, taking my kids to school. I could have had somebody else do that. Cheap, you know, it was a long drive. It's 20 minutes each way. So I'm talking about a 40-minute times two commitment. They could have gone on the bus. I could have done a lot of things, but I
Yeah.
looked at it as an opportunity for me to have some time to be silly with them
To
in the car.
connect.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there was a different ROI on that time. And it wasn't financial, it was what was important for me. And that's what I think freedom is. It's your
Mm,
ability to choose whether or not you should spend your time doing some shitty task that is you could easily outsource for 20 bucks an hour, or is it going to light you up? And so I kept the lawn mowing until I moved out of that town 2.5 years ago because like you, I got something out of it. I love putting in my AirPods and I'd jump on the little riding mower and I'd cruise around for 2.5, 3 hours. And I didn't have to think about, in the legal days, it was lawsuit stuff or business stuff.
yeah.
I
It
was
helps you
listening
with
to
your
music.
peace of mind, your
Yeah.
serenity.
And what was best is I get to the end and I'd look back at the whole yard and all the trees and all that. I'm like, yeah,
Feedback loop.
it looks good. Yep. It looks
Feedback
good.
loop. Man,
So that's
there's so
freedom. And that's why I like to help people build it because it's not the same for me as it is for you or anybody else listening. But there's frameworks. And that's what I learned in rehab. And then I began to get better and better at every year since is that you can put things through a framework to help you better understand what's a dumpster fire, what's a kitchen fire. And if it's a kitchen fire, how do you deploy resources to extinguish the fire quickly? If it's a dumpster fire, how do you redirect resources so nobody gets like, let it burn over there, out of your sight, out of mind?
right.
All
Right.
frameworks, man.
Right. And I was a philosophy major in college. For whatever reason, that's just what I invested my bachelor's degree into. The more I get older, the more I'm like, there's compounding interest. Like, I'm glad I did that and
Yeah.
built some of the habits of like studying and learning. But there's like quotes that professors in school said. The way my brain's wired is like I have like perfect recall for some things that other people would like, why do you remember that? And then other things like to do your homework, I completely forgot. Show up to class on time, I completely forgot.
If
The
somebody ordered a
definition,
burger or salmon, you forgot
yeah,
about that.
that's you lost me. Freedom commonly in Western thought is defined as absence from external coercion or the ability to do otherwise. So very comparable to what you said.
Mhm.
And freedom applies to sobriety, it applies to helping business owners to optimize that
Yeah.
relationship they have with business. Because with addiction, one of the definitions I like for that is sacrificing everything for one thing, right? So
Mhm.
your life, your family, your relationships, money, whatever, to feed
Yeah.
addiction. Sobriety is sacrificing one thing, the addiction, or everything else.
Yeah.
And I think if you can be free of addiction, that cancerous, that parasitic relationship that's coercing you to do things, and you can't, and people that are in it feel like they must do the feeding of it. Like you're free of it when you can choose not to, or you
Correct.
can, or that thing is no longer dictating your behavioral patterns.
Uh,
I've never had that conversation before, but I'm glad to share it with you because that's talk about like what can help people listening. Like this doesn't apply to any one substance, it applies to anything. If you can't truly say you're free, then I think solve for that, right? If you solve for
yeah.
freedom, you're probably in good shape. It's
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
good
I think
directional.
so. I think so. So that's a good angle on that. So I remember I was in Yellowstone National Park with what did I have? I had 3 kids, I think, at the time. One was just a baby, and I was chewing tobacco. That was one thing that I held on to that I didn't want to get rid of all my addictions. I wanted to keep one thing so I could keep my autonomy. I'm in charge. But it dawned on me when I pulled into Old Faithful, and I was in a big RV, pulled into Old Faithful, and as soon as I turned off the main road to the road that led to Old Faithful, I started thinking like, okay, haven't had a chew in a while, and I kind of want one. And so, I mean, I got like 7 or 8 minutes of a drive still to the parking lot of Old Faithful. I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? Because we got to get out. And I started calculating in my head, like, okay, if I can do this, and then I come around the corner and I can see the parking lot. I'm like, great. There's kind of like a turnaround thing over here, so I will pull the RV up to this side and let everybody pile out. Wife, 2 baby, and 2 other kids. They're going to go out, and then I will need to park the RV. So, and it's for me to park the RV, it's gonna be a 5 minute walk because I gotta go all the way to that side of the parking lot. I'm like, perfect. Yes, that's enough time. As soon as I drop them off, I'll throw in a dip, I'll cruise over to the other side, I'll park. And that was my strategy. And as soon as I got to the park, I executed my plan to perfection. Got them out of the RV, threw it in real quick because I didn't want to do that in front of my kids. I didn't want to show that example. So I throw it in and I'm driving over and I'm parking. And it started to occur, and this is after sobriety, right? This is after rehab. And I started thinking, like, look how many. I was speaking. My self talk in my head uses the F word a lot, and that's how it was. So I'm
Yeah.
like, look how many motherfucking thoughts I had about chew just from the time it's probably hundreds of thoughts and plans. And then I shuddered as I locked up the RV and started walking towards I was kind of like, that's the same shit that I used to do with pain pills and opiates of all kinds. And it took over my life. And I spat it out. And it wasn't just as easy to walk away from, but I recognized that that was a kitchen fire and that I was trying to pretend like it was a dumpster fire. And I realized that had to change. So I started using Nicorette and different things there,
Yep.
which I held on to that for way too long. But for that
I
point
would
forward,
say
it's like,
you're nicotine free.
yeah, absolutely. I haven't had any of that for, it's been years and years and years, like a decade, and
Hmm.
that was really hard because it was when I was hanging on to, but I just recognized that freedom element that you talked about, that I wasn't free. And it wasn't just some dumb thing that I was putting in my mouth for a little while. If it was just that, and that was all, that would be a different story. But it wasn't that. It was the
Mm.
calculation. It was the brain power. It was the
Well, and that's
bandwidth.
how some people can drink without becoming addicted. That's how some people can do certain things without becoming addicted. I think nicotine is very addictive as a substance.
It is.
Someone that uses nicotine daily.
It's big time addictive.
But to your point, the difference is if someone could pick up a drink and say, I'm gonna, stop with one, because I think one of the things with alcoholics would be, one is both too many and also never enough.
Yeah.
It's like if that's how someone is, then it's probably better to abstain.
Yeah.
And with business, like, look, I do this show and I love to have conversations with business owners. For some people, business ownership y isn't the thing, right? Like, there's people out there that would be much happier working a job.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that's cool too. Like, I don't want
Oh,
to impose entrepreneurship. I just want to say, hey, if you so choose that, how can we help? So leads me to my favorite section of the show, which is leave a question, ask a question. So the last guest that I had on has a question for you without knowing anything about you. And you have the opportunity after answering to ask the
ah,
next guest. I'm not
okay.
going to tell you who they are, any question you would like. Question for you, Justin,
Wow.
is
Okay.
what would you do if you could?
I would spend 2 months in a location and no more. And then I would leave. But I'd be okay if I came back to that same location. But I love variety. And so if I could, that would be that's my plan. That's my goal. That's on my list for as soon as my last child leaves high school. That will be what I execute. I've noticed in life, because I've had the good fortune to have that freedom where I've taken my whole family and we've just moved to Hawaii within 6 days' notice, and we're just there for a year. And in doing that, and not having the routines of getting up and going to school, getting up and going to the office, getting up and doing that, like every day was different. It made time really stretch. Like it was about 9 months we lived there, and it literally felt like 3 years. In the most, like, I can't believe that it was only 9 months. The last 9 months that I've been in my office almost every day, like a normal kind of schedule, flies by. But when you
Mm,
do things that are out, I've noticed for me at least, when I
with
do things that are
novelty.
not, yeah, that difference, that I'm more full of gratitude. I appreciate just the basic, simple things I see around me on a day to day basis. So if I could, I would spend no more than 2 months in a place before I went to another place because the change in energy, perspective, vantage point just shifts who I am in my mind.
People are not trees. You don't need to stay in one place forever and put your roots down.
Right.
What question then would you have for the next guest?
Oh, man. I've never been asked this one before, Ross. You kind of stumped me. Um, What's the most important thing that your 40-year older version of you would come back and tell you today not to screw up? I was going to say F up, but we'll keep it cleaner. So, somebody that's a bit older than you, your version of yourself. A lot of people always say that question, like, if I was 20, or what would you tell your 20-year-old self? And I want to flip that around a little bit and
Right.
say,
Yep.
today, what about that version of you when so I'm 46. When I'm 76, what does my 76-year-old version of me say? You damn well better do this year to make sure, or you
Right.
make sure don't
What's the kitchen
screw this
fire
up.
now?
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you need to direct your attention and really get serious and hold a standard that will keep you moving in the direction that you know you're capable of?
That's a great question, Justin. I appreciate that. The last question is not deep. Where can people find you, connect, learn more, get in touch?
Okay. Whew. I was thinking you were going to escalate into harder questions. Okay. Yeah, that one is easy. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, everything's kind of all the same. It's Justin Lund. Yeah, and I'd love to connect with any of you. Shoot me a DM on any of those platforms. TikTok, Twitter, it's all the same. Facebook, we're on all of them. So, and
Very
hopefully there's
cool.
some content there that is helpful, that's insightful, that can help you to recognize the kitchen dump and the dumpster fire and how to act accordingly in each situation.
Very cool. Well, Justin, I appreciate the time spent and everyone listening. Thank you for tuning in as always. I do not run ads on the show. I don't plan to. My only ask is if you found value to share it with a friend. At the beginning, we promised to have brainstorms around life, liberty, pursuit of property. And if we didn't fulfill that promise, then you'll lost me. I think we did. Thank you so
I think
much,
I
Justin. Thank you, everyone
Thanks,
listening.
Ross. Thanks for having me.